Hi folks, and welcome back to a lovely bit of kit. Well, today we're off onto another road trip. Still searching for classics, so today we're heading back up to Pickering and back to Mathewsons. So we're back at Mathewsons again at the Pickering site. Quite a few cars to take a look at today actually. A few things jump out of the list at me, particularly with an MG badge on. But one or two other things as well. Maybe a few oddball things, attracted to the oddball, and see what else we can find that might pique some interest. Let's pop along, sign in, see what we find. And before we go in, just another reminder that Mathewsons don't open to the general public and that these viewing periods are exclusive to those who are interested in bidding on cars. Now the cars that brought me in today include this fantastic Sebring Sprite replica, and there was also a good selection of things with an MG badge, some mid-engine sports cars that always attract my attention, and there are some cars like this Volvo that just catch the eye. You know, some cars just look right, don't they? And I've always thought that these Sebring Sprites look absolutely fabulous. This is specifically a replica of a Sprinzel Sebring Sprite created by John Sprinzel in 1961. The cars were launched at the London Racing Car Show. A total of 6 were made, bodywork by Williams and Pritchard, and I believe 4 still exist. They have a very strong racing history and racing and rallying history. 2 of the cars took part in the 1961 Sebring 4 Hours race driven by Sterling and Pat Moss. This is obviously a replica. It has fiberglass bodywork and it's based on a 1959 Frogeye Sprite. And as it happens, for comparison, there was a Frogeye in its original form, also available in the same sale. And at £8,700 hammer price for the Sebring and £7,500 for the Frogeye, I think both represented really good value for money, to be honest. And whilst we're on a Sebring theme, not quite sure how you'd term this. I think it's perhaps an evocation of a Sebring MGB GT, with wide arches, MGC bonnet, a fuel cap, sports fuel cap, but very much built for the road rather than racing. This didn't sell at the sale and has now gone into a timed auction at an estimate of 15 to 20k. Another popular modification in period was to modify your MG Midget with panels produced by the Ashley Laminates company. This converted the open-top MG Midget into a GT car, and this is a good example which has been used for hill climbing and sprinting in more recent years. This sold for the 3rd time of asking, having previously been in the June auction and the subsequent timed auction, which is where you find the unsold lots from each of these auctions. And this sold for a hammer price of £8,100. And MGB GTs are very much on my radar. This was an absolutely excellent example, and I think these are really quite practical cars. I think they can be used as a day-to-day classic, with hammer prices ranging from £5,800 to £15,900. Obviously that very wide price range reflecting really quite a variety in condition in the cars. The chrome bumpered models are obviously far more popular than the later rubber bumpered models, but you know, even those are starting to get a following now. And judging by the amount of bumper rash that I get on my current daily car, if you regularly park in a city centre, then a rubber bumper might just have an advantage. And this particular example, being in black, actually does blend in quite nicely with the bumpers. They almost look colour-coded, don't they? This one hasn't sold in this particular auction, but has rolled over into the timed auction. And just as there's a very wide price range in the MGB GTs, there's an equally wide range of prices in the MGF and MGTF models from the late 90s and 2000s. Again, very much reflecting the relative conditions of the cars. These cars can suffer from corrosion, just like the earlier models. A good one, or one that's had its subframes replaced recently, will always carry a premium. And this particular car could probably attract a premium as a TV star. It was the subject of a Bangers and Cash restoration project, bought in the June sale and treated to a new interior, certainly seats and door cards, as well as a sill repair and a lower suspension arm replacement and a general refresh and service. I won't give away the hammer price in the two auctions, but look out for that in the next series of Bangers and Cash restoring classics. And as my regular viewer of the channel will know, I've got a bit of a soft spot for mid-engine sports cars, and the X19 is something that's coming into its own, I think. And this particular example had modified bumper mounts to get rid of the US impact bumpers, kind of suck the bumpers in a little bit at the front, and I think it does improve the lines of the car actually, although they've always looked pretty good in my view. I guess they're a bit of a Marmite car, like many cars, but I quite like the look of them, and it's good to see them coming into their own. And this one sold for £7,000 hammer price. And you may remember that in the preview and review of the June auction, we looked at a barn find Lancia Monte Carlo Spyder from 1981. Well, here we have a 1982 example. This was build number 157 of 253 right-hand drive models produced. It had a pretty comprehensive rebuild, including an engine rebuild, and it looked absolutely stunning. And that sold for a hammer price of $14,300, whereas the barn find in the previous auction, which was estimated at 3 to 4k, had actually gone for $8,750. And if you fancy some Italian style at a lower price point, how about this Alfa Spyder? This 1997 pre-facelift model. This remained unsold at an estimate of $1,500 to $2,500. Right. I couldn't really make my mind up about this next one, a Peugeot 304. The styling looked a little bit boxy for me, but it is quite an unusual car, and I'm sure it would turn heads at a car meet, and obviously somebody out there agreed with that because it sold for $6,100, despite being estimated at $1,500 to $2,500. And pickups seem to me to be quite a practical proposition in terms of having a classic on the drive. This was a 1985 South African import, but maybe given that I live in a semi-rural area, the Landies would be a better option. They have the great advantage that they definitely hold their value, and I think they'll always have a following. And I was talking about bumper rash earlier when you're visiting the local town. I think the Landy would come off better, wouldn't it, if somebody tried to give you a bumper a bit of a scrape. This Land Rover pickup sold for $3,700, given it was structurally sound, or seemed to be. I think that was quite a good buy for somebody. Whilst we're with the Land Rovers, this also seemed like a really good buy. It's a 1961 ex-GPO Telephones short wheelbase with a capstan winch. That went for $5,500. And as usual, there is the smattering of tractors in the sale, and these two David Browns tucked away in the corner of the compound were the two that caught my eye on the day. And of course I had to grab a few shots of the barn finds. I know that they always fascinate people, and this Jensen looking particularly spectacular, and will make an absolutely stunning car when it's restored. That sold for £8,000. And tucked away in the corner was this little Hillman Imp Deluxe, absolutely dwarfed by the cars around it. Again, seemingly complete, and that's quite a good project, I think. I think other than the Jensen, the other barn find that stood out for me was this 1971 Porsche 911 Targa top 2.2 litre engine, seemingly complete, and this sold for quite impressive, I think, 23,750. And prices for these restored very widely online. I'm not a Porsche expert, but be interested to know what folks think. Again, let me know in the comments below. And I always have a soft spot for Jarrett's. One of my father's favourite cars. He always wanted one, and had a reputation for being quite advanced in their day, and this was a very worthwhile project. And if you were looking for a car that makes an entrance, well, this Triumph Roadster really fits the bill. This is an example of the 2-litre version. The car is built in 1949, one of the later cars in the run, I think. Probably better to describe this one as a garage find rather than a barn find. It did run, and it was obviously complete, but needed a bit of tidying up at least. It's the sort of car that makes an entrance, isn't it? It looked to be very original. Only 2,000 of these were made originally, and according to the Triumph Roadster Club, there are 245 of the 2-litre version currently owned by club members. Very, very impressive looking thing, and again, a worthwhile project. And from a grand roadster to a humble moggy. I learnt to drive in one of these. And I think you always have a soft spot, don't you, for the car that you learnt to drive in. Maybe one would look good on the drive. It's a good companion to the T4. And they're probably quite a practical day-to-day classic, to be honest. And the Morse 8 Tourer, always a favourite of mine from childhood. Not quite right for me right now, but I'm going to keep an eye on these. And I think, actually, they're very good value for money, this one, selling for 6,200 hammer. And I love the look of these Sunbeam stilettos. We featured a racing version of one of these in the Cadwell Park video racing at the HSCC meeting there. And as I mentioned before, this car really grabs the attention, doesn't it? Very, very nice looking Volvo. I'm not a great fan of the later Volvos, to be perfectly frank, but this does look very stylish. Unfortunately not sold in this sale, estimated at 25 to 27k. And this rolled over into the timed auction at a reduced estimate of 22,500 to 24,500. And if you're watching this video on the weekend that it goes live, the timed auction finishes on the Sunday, I believe. So that was a bit of a quick visit today, but I saw what I needed to see and got a few extra shots for the channel. Really busy, and they're operating now a one-in, one-out system for viewers. So you're given a high-vis vest when you go in, hand it back in when you go back out again, and they don't allow new people in until they've got a high-vis jacket available. So actually quite a practical solution to keeping a head count, I suppose. But yeah, I was in there for about an hour or so. Some interesting cars. There's one in particular that I'm going to have to sleep on. Somebody's setting alarms off. I suppose that's inevitable. There's one in particular that I'll give some thought to. But I've got the rest of the day now, and I'm Pickering, so what's the obvious thing to do is to pop down to the station and see if I can get some activity at the Pickering end of the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. And if you're interested in heritage railways, that includes heritage diesel as well as heritage steam, and do look out for part 2, which will be on the channel shortly. And if you like this kind of content, then please do consider subscribing to the channel. And thanks so much for watching, liking the videos and commenting. Very much appreciated. And I'll see you in the next one.